What's your most shameful adult moment? Story 1. Okay, so when I was probably 15, my girlfriend was sleeping over, and we weren't supposed to be alone, but everyone else had gone to bed without checking on us. So we decided to have some fun in my room. My room was at the top of the house and had a staircase leading up to the door. I had hung one of those dangling bead things at the bottom of the steps a long time ago because my door didn't have a lock on it, and my family didn't respect boundaries. So if I heard the beads moving, I would know that I had about 0.5 seconds before someone came barging into my room, which was better than nothing. So it's basically 11 p.m., and my girlfriend and I are having some pretty awkward teenage time when I hear the beads. Panic. I think it's my stepdad coming upstairs to check on us, because walking into my room at almost midnight to make sure I was in bed was normal for him. So I move as fast as I ever have moved in my life. I threw my blankets over my girlfriend to cover her up. Now, I had left my pants around my ankles for just this situation, so I reached down and yanked them up as fast as possible. The issue with this was that I had only managed to grab hold of my pants, not my underwear. This resulted in the underwear rolling up my very hairy legs, taking lots of said hair with it, and giving me the most painful, self-inflicted wedgie of all time. Having no time to acknowledge the pain I was suddenly in, I rushed to the door to open it, trying to come up with some excuse as to why I was in a room alone with my girlfriend. I opened the door, and to my surprise, there was no one there. I looked down a little bit, and staring at me with his big dumb face was my family's dog. On the bright side, this guy got some quality practice time, improving his reflexes for the real thing next time. He can analyze his performance after that and maybe fine-tune the process like an F1 pit crew. The other possibility here is that the stepdad has now trained the dog to investigate and report back in, or at least strap a GoPro to it or something. I wonder what the excuse for being alone with the girlfriend was going to be, because at age 15, everyone in the world knows what you're doing, man. Story 2. In the 90s or early 2000s, we bought a pub and moved into it. It had a big screen upstairs, and we lived above. But Sky Sports was so expensive for the business account, we basically hooked the giant screen to our box upstairs, so whenever the sport was on, it would show on the screen downstairs. So we couldn't watch TV upstairs except what was being shown on the big screen when this was happening. So anyway, one Sunday evening around 10 p.m. after the sport, bearing in mind the sport finished at 6 p.m., I was freely browsing through channels because the giant screen has wound up into the ceiling, and my 14-year-old self came across some adult TV, if you know what I mean. Curious, I started watching it. Suddenly, there was a big buzz from the phone that connected downstairs, so I answered it. It's my mom laughing in the background. What are you watching? I was like, I was just flicking through channels. Well, you've stayed on that one for a while, haven't you? I forgot about the small TV in the bar area. It was still on and was showing the entire pub what my 14-year-old self was watching. I was mortified. Luckily, my mom never brought it up again, and neither did any of the customers, thankfully. Story 3. I was 18, came home very drunk from a night out, and hopped into bed with my then-girlfriend. Fortunately for me, she woke up and was keen to fool around. Me being in the state I was, didn't have time for lubricant and or aiming, and I went in hard and fast. The first and only push led to what I can only imagine as the equivalent of snapping your Achilles tendon, except this tendon wasn't located on my leg. It was in fact my frenulum. Just Google it. Instantly, I panicked. I turned the light on and told my ex to hang on. I looked down to see that I had basically snapped my banjo string in half and essentially given myself a DIY willy cut. There was a lot of blood, but I played it cool. My gut instinct was to run to the bathroom. Once I made it there, I wrapped my wang up in toilet paper like Tutankhamun, emptied out the toothbrush cup holder, filled it with warm water, and stuck my pecker in the cup to try to cool it down. Yeah, it hurt. By this time, I'd lost a fair amount of blood, and me being me, a hypochondriac / bad with blood, I tried to sit down on the side of the bath to try not to pass out. That didn't work. Anyway, long story short, I woke up to my ex-girlfriend's dad standing over me at 7 a.m. in the morning, around 3 hours later, after he had followed a trail of blood down the hallway to where he would normally take his morning shower. And there I was, laying in the bathtub, passed out, dong wrapped up in toilet paper, shoved inside his toothbrush cup holder, naked as the day I was born, covered in blood. My partner at the time fell back asleep after I'd left the bedroom that night and left her poor father to find me blackout drunk in his bathtub after trying to bang his daughter. He thought I was dead, and I wished I was. So there is a lot to unpack in this story. With regards to the hard and fast initial contact, remember to always warm up the car first after a cold start. Just saying. Also, Do you have any idea how much bacteria and disgusting germs live inside of a toothbrush cup holder? I'm guessing 97% of people never remember to even clean that thing, and now you have just shoved your gentleman's sausage in there with an open wound. Not advised. I would have loved to have seen the reaction of the dad because it would take several seconds for your brain to even process what you are looking at in the tub. That's not something you see every day. Story 4. I was once extremely drunk and staying in a very expensive hotel in Hollywood. I went to bed, as I should, and I woke up in the middle of the night and had to pee. I walked through the bathroom door and closed it behind me. And I then realized that that wasn't the bathroom door, but rather the room door. I was locked out of my room, in a fancy hotel, drunk off my butt, wearing only my underwear. I went to the elevator lobby, where there was a phone, and called the front desk and explained my situation. They said they would send someone up. And I realized I couldn't wait, and continued searching for a place to pee, and found a janitor's closet with a rolling mop bucket in it. I took a giant pee in the mop bucket and then walked back to my room door, where a bellhop, who really didn't want to look me in the eye, let me back into my room. I'm very sorry, Mandarin Hotel. Story 5. My high school boyfriend and I were having fun in his attic bedroom, both of us completely naked. I was bouncing and making a lot of noise with the headboard because we were home alone. Well, his mom came home early and we had no idea until she was at the top of the stairs calling his name and then walked in on me, totally naked, and riding her son. She took a breath, calmly told us to get dressed and come downstairs. When we did, she told us that she was disappointed and asked him to walk me home. He very quietly told her we had planned to go to a church youth group afterwards, and she let us leave after she picked up her jaw off the floor. That was the first time I'd met his mom. Story 6. I was 16 and my girlfriend and I were in her room doing the deed with the lights off under the covers, and her mom walks in, not realizing what we are doing, since the lights were off, and casually starts talking to her daughter. After a little bit, she realized what we were doing and she stormed off. Another time, same place, same girl, same mom, she walks in when I'm sitting on my girlfriend's bed naked, reaching for my underwear. I was really ashamed. Her mom was too. Story 7. For over a decade, I worked in a high-rise office building, and at noon I would change into a t-shirt, shorts, and runners to go for a walk or a jog. One day I changed and took the elevator from the 8th floor to ground floor, and when I arrived there I checked my shorts pocket to make sure I had my passkey. However, I was surprised to find that I had no pockets. Well, I quickly realized that I had neglected to put on my shorts and was standing in the lobby, overflowing with the lunch crowd in my underwear, boxers. So, instead of a jog, I took the stairs and sprinted up 8 floors, which was a great workout. Luckily, I was able to get back into our office without, I don't believe, anyone noticing. A great rationale for wearing dark-colored boxers. This story is a good example of how unaware and sometimes clueless people are to what is going on around them. I'm sure it's possible that his boxers truly weren't that noticeable because, after all, those fancy running shorts are practically just boxers without the front hole. This guy probably drew more attention to himself by running quickly back to the elevator in a panic than anything else. In the comments, does anyone have a funny story of leaving an important article of clothing behind? Story 8. I had food poisoning and my boyfriend had to clean up the entire bathroom. Woke up in the night feeling pretty bad, so I got up to go be sick. As soon as I got to the bathroom, I felt it coming, so I threw myself at the toilet and started throwing up. Now, as I did, I started crapping all over the floor, and we both sleep naked, so I wasn't wearing any pants, which surprised me, so I had to jump up, sit on the toilet, and aimed my sick into the sink, which thankfully was right next to me and within reach. All this noise woke up my boyfriend, who came and knocked on the door, so I screamed, "Don't come in." But him being the caring and loving boyfriend, he decided he would come in and hold my hair out of my face for me, not realizing the absolute horror he was walking into. It was a tiny bathroom, just big enough for the bath, the toilet, and a sink, so not only was there liquid crap all over the floor, but it had sprayed up the back of the door, the wall, the side of the bath, and the sink base. It was a bathroom in the center of the house too, so no windows to open up for the smell. He made me get in the shower while he cleaned up everything, and we've never spoken about it since, but we've since gotten married, so he still loves me, I guess. We do keep a bowl in our new bathroom in our new house now, just in case you ever need to throw up while on the toilet so that you don't clog the sink. I think the question we all want to know the answer to is, what did you eat that caused such devastation and destruction? Anyone want to take some guesses as to the genre of food that caused the distress? I'm going to go with a Chinese buffet. And let's have a slow clap for the awesome boyfriend and how thoughtful he was to clean up the mess for her. Stand-up performance by him. This girl definitely owed him several favors after this ordeal. Story 9. This isn't so much one about me as it is my friend, but I was there to witness it. My friend has a very strict mom, but she always really liked me, so I got to hang out at their house a lot. Me and my friend became very close, and they were very religious, so I had no idea my friend, being a 12 or 13-year-old Christian, that he would do anything sexual in the slightest. To my surprise, one time I went to his house, and it was normal until the next morning when we were eating breakfast, and his mom went through his phone. Out of nowhere, she comes into the kitchen and yells my friend's name and says, "Why are you looking up biggest boobs, biggest butts?" I turned to my friend trying to hold back a laugh, but he was not amused. He went into a room with his mom, and to make matters worse, he said he's only done it a couple times, it's not a big deal. His mom calmed down and talked to us about how there's no light in looking at girls with big privates online. I never brought this back up to my friend, but man, was it funny. Story 10. I was 15 or 16-ish, and first real girlfriend and I getting hot and heavy on my dad's couch. Small apartment, but he's a doctor and was never home. Supposed to be at work that day an hour away, so all good, right? I hear the door open and I yell, "Stop, don't come in!" But he's an idiot and walks in on us buck naked, holding the cushions over the appropriate regions. The more shameful thing was a year later, I was doing the same with a different gal and heard the door. He had very much said he was working that night, so I was confused, and it turns out my mom had some emergency, so he picked up my older sisters and brought them to stay for a few days. They lived with mom and me with him. It's a small apartment, but you have to take about 8 to 10 paces before you could see past the corner to the couch. And this time, when I yelled, he had the good sense to hold my sisters back and tell them to wait. A very quick application of clothes, some underwear not included, and one walk of shame past my family, and I waved her goodbye. Story 11. One drunken night, my now wife and I took some naughty photos on her digital camera. The next day, we took a drive an hour from home, and we get a text from her mom to let us know that she's borrowed the camera for a girls' trip to Center Parks. What could we say? We were stunned at what was happening. For some reason, we chose to say nothing. Fast forward to later that day, whilst looking through photos of the day with her friends, a photo of her daughter with her boyfriend's junk in her mouth flashes on the screen. Every now and again, this comes up as an anecdote during family dinners because her family finds it an amusing story, whilst I sit there and get lower and lower in my chair. Story 12. Another one that haunts me is when I was in the talking stage with this guy and I went over to his house on New Year's Eve, and I was giving him a BJ. I was young and fairly new to it, so I wasn't doing it how he wanted, I guess. Halfway through, he grabs my head and shoves it all the way down. Earlier that day, I had that New Year's Eve takeout, and I'd eaten a whole container of fried rice, and my gag reflex had zero control. So I proceeded to throw up a mountain of half-digested fried rice all over him. He actually started crying and made me get a towel and clean up as much as I could. And then he went and had a shower, and when he came back, he called me a taxi and banished me from his home. I don't blame him. Still keeps me up at night. Story 13. When I lived in a shared house, I decided one evening to shave my pubes. I went to flush the hair down the toilet, but someone was in there. So instead, I considered throwing them out my second-story window. I know, gross, don't judge me. But then I saw that 2 of his housemates and 2 of their friends were in the spa pool outside the window, so I decided not to. What happened next is a blur, but I think I just left them on the windowsill and forgot about them. 10 minutes later, I heard a shriek followed by someone yelling at me. At first, I didn't know what was going on, but then I realized the wind must have blown my pubes out of the window and into the spa pool. I absolutely played dumb and refused to admit it was me. I came to the window to see what the fuss was about and acted shocked and outraged that they could accuse me of something so disgusting and weird. Inside, I was cringing like I've never cringed before. I'm actually best friends with one of the guys in the spa, and only recently, years later, did I confess that it was me, but it was sort of an accident. He now finds it hilarious, but I'm sure his fiancée would disagree. There are some confusing and disturbing questions which need to be answered about this story. So, this person says that they shaved their pubes and then tried to flush them down the toilet, which was occupied. So my question is, where exactly are you shaving your pubes to begin with? Were you just making a little pile like a bird's nest in your bedroom and then thought you would carry them to the bathroom? The logical place to do this would be over a toilet or perhaps in the shower, and either one would have allowed you to dispose of them appropriately. Apparently, this is not the kind of personal grooming that you can do on the fly. Story 14. Neighbors came over to hang out in the backyard. Family of 5, older parents, and 3 kids that go to the same university as me. One kid brings over their Bluetooth speaker when mine dies, and I sync it to my phone and play music for the evening. Next day, I woke up to study for the BC finals. But before I study, I decide I'm gonna You know. So I find a video that I like, hit play, and wonder why there's no sound. I turn the volume all the way, wondering if my phone speaker is broken. I mute, I unmute, I close, I reopen, refresh, use different browsers. I was very determined and couldn't figure it out, so I eventually gave up and decided to watch it without sound. After about 2 minutes, the sound on my phone turns on and then says Bluetooth connection lost. I almost threw up right then when I realized my phone was connected to their speaker and they were hearing at full volume the video I was watching. Absolutely mortifying. To this day, I have random flashbacks and wish I was dead sometime. Story 15. Not me, but when my parents were younger, my mom and dad were at his house doing it when my grandma, my dad's stepmom, suddenly announced she was coming up the stairs to give my dad his laundry. They both panicked. My grandma didn't even know my mom was there, so my mom ran into his closet and he stayed in his bed to cover up. My grandma walked in with his clothes and started putting them away, and she opened his closet to find my mom standing there inches away from her face, completely naked. Without a word, my grandma shut the door and walked out of the room. And then later my mom had to stay for dinner. None of them have ever spoken about it. Story 16. I was in the Navy, going through school at Great Lakes Naval Training Center. This was the early 90s, so no cell phones or internet to speak of. Now, unlike 90% of the other squids, I had a car. And that made me the driver for our little clique. Every other weekend we were in Chicago. We'd group up and get a couple rooms for like 5 guys, knowing that there was no way that all of us would get some. Idiot Navy boys rarely did. This one weekend we're in Excalibur downtown. And again, I'm the driver, so I'm sober. Stone, cold, sober. I'm at the bar drinking my 5th or 12th